Hi everybody, welcome to Eating Peace this week. I'm preparing a lot right now for the next round of Eating Peace experience, and it starts at the end of the January at the time of this recording. But looking over my notes and collecting and gathering together the teachings that we've kind of condensed into this program that's done online, I had so many different topics that I could pick from. And people also tend to write in and ask a few questions. So I hope this actually addresses a few of the different people who've written in asking for me to speak about this, that this will help. It's the topic of ambivalence. Ambivalence. That is, when you're not really sure about something. Is it a yes or is it a no? I kind of want to make the pro and the con list. And we can have ambivalence about actually stopping our overeating, our compulsive eating, that either graze eating or grabbing or binge eating or whatever it is, that eating that's going on that feels off balance. We actually feel ambivalent often about stopping it. Now I know when you've eaten a lot and when it's sitting in your stomach and you feel terrible, we don't feel so ambivalent then. Then is when you say, I am never doing this again. I can't believe it's happening. So horrible. Can't stand myself. Hate myself. What's wrong with me? And a lot of extremely negative and critical thoughts come spewing forward. They're just busy in the mind there. The mind is very upset because it actually is feeling physical pain or the suffering of not doing what you said you were going to do, that kind of thing. Very understandable. Have a little compassion for the self in that kind of moment if you've experienced that. I love that you just wait. One thing that might help, if this has been your experience recently, is wait 24 hours without binging. You can even eat just normal meals calmly, peacefully. 24 hours from that point of pain, you will feel better. You will feel so much better. 24 hours later, maybe even less. Just remembering that. The mind will be shouting and screaming at you about how many years you've been suffering and doing this over and over again, and kind of make it really grand and globular and all-encompassing. And like my whole life I've been struggling with this, and I haven't gotten this together for X many years. And maybe there's some awareness around that. We're not denying if you've been suffering, but just to know, just relax and stop and wait. Take a deep breath. Don't overeat or eat off balance. And 24 hours later, you will feel better. So I hope that helps. But let's look a little more at ambivalence, because I think it's an incredibly powerful topic. I actually go into it a little more closely in the Eating Peace experience. But ambivalence. I want to, I don't want to. I want to, and I don't want to. It will seem, of course, so much like we want to on the surface, on the outside. Lose weight, find balance, get our act together when it comes to eating, stop the craziness. That'll seem sort of like an obvious forefront idea for most of us. Of course I want to quit. This is terrible. If it was just clear and simple like that, we'd do it. Because then there's this, I don't really want to. That is something to actually be really fascinated by. Great awareness. Something doesn't want to stop. Just wants to keep going. Just wants to eat from one end of the town to the other. I don't care if I'm no longer hungry. It wants to defy and blow through that, right? That one, also, if you really asked it, that voice, a question within, it might say, yeah, I don't really want to. I don't really want to give up things. I don't want to suffer. So let's take a look. What is that voice saying? What is that voice saying? So important to identify. So this is what it says for me. I'm afraid it'll hurt. It'll be hard later on. It'll be very serious. Um, I'll have to be tightening my grip. I'll have to be bracing myself against cravings. I will not get to have fun. If you sit and contemplate and allow yourself to meditate on what you don't like about whatever you perceiving, whatever your interpretation of balanced eating is, your story of it, what do I not like about that? I mean, just it can be absurd. And just write it all down. And it might sound completely bonkers. That wouldn't be good because then I'd never have any fun. It wouldn't be good to have balanced eating because then I couldn't join with my friends at the same exact time that they're eating. I might not feel like eating at that moment. That would be terrible. I wouldn't want balanced eating because then I'd never reach that dream goal of extra thin, very, very svelte. My body isn't really like that. And I wouldn't ever reach it if I just had balanced eating. I want extra thin. That's an interesting thing to give up. Powerful one. Because it's worth it. It's worth taking a look at all those things we think we're afraid of that are going to happen coming up in the future, and with why I don't want balanced eating, and let them be out in the open in the surface. Because once they're out in the open, we can take them through inquiry. We can see them, and we can use the work of Byron Katie to question it. Is that actually true? Who would I be without the thought? Who are you when you believe, I don't want to, I secretly don't want this to stop? I'm afraid my head will explode with anxiety if I don't have binge eating as an option to calm myself down or to feel like I'm releasing. An individual client was sharing with me not long ago, she feels like she's releasing when she eats and then purges by vomiting. So wonderful to examine, are we absolutely sure that's true? Can you imagine there being another way to release? It does seem that there's human beings out in the world here that are perfectly fine without doing this kind of release. They find other ways to release. In fact, I would even say the ambivalent one is just kind of scared. It's not really the ambivalent one that's not sure it really wants balanced eating. You'll find what's your unique fears for you, very important. And then you can really decide, kind of see it, look in a new way. I wanted to share this beautiful Annie Lamott quote. Annie Lamott is a writer who talks a lot about compulsion and has had her experiences of addiction and overeating and over drinking and over many things. And she's very entertaining and has a beautiful way of writing with humor. But she has this quote about being perfect, imagining that perfect place we're striving for, which often many of us with eating issues are wanting to get, whether it's having a perfect body or having a perfect emotional countenance. We're always kind, we're always loving, we're never angry, we handle things beautifully and perfectly well. And there's other things that we're striving for, and of course it's a huge amount of pressure. We're also supposed to accomplish many things in the world in a very perfect way, right? Like have a good life, contribute, be of service. So she says about perfectionism, I think perfectionism is based on the obsessive belief that if you run carefully enough, hitting each stepping stone just right, you won't have to die. The truth is that you will die anyway, and that a lot of people who aren't even looking at their feet are going to do a whole lot better than you and have a whole lot more fun while they're doing it. So she's laughing in her humorous way about that with us. But we could say with this sense of ambivalence, what she is meaning for me about looking at your feet, that obsessive way of looking at their feet and being very, very careful, is the whole religion that we have around food and eating. Right? The religion of it must be this certain way to be perfect. I need to eat just like this. I need to read every single label, and what gets worked up within us. It feels like there's something risky going on and dangerous. I need to make sure my weight is a certain way. I need to look a certain way. I need to have clothing be just right. I need to have this countenance that's right, like my mannerisms with people and how I am. I don't want to cause a ruckus or harm in the world. I need to kind of, limit or control or watch myself regularly in a very strong way. And so just having that orientation, of course, can make anyone even more anxious if you have to be careful. Byron Katie has this wonderful regular quote she says that's written in several books, and she'll say some from time to time. Don't be careful. You might hurt yourself. Don't be careful. You might hurt yourself. That is the quintessential summary of how I was with food and eating. Very hyper alert, very careful, very nervous, and then feeling ambivalent about caring acutely about this whole thing. It's like a food religion, and I must be very, very attentive to this food religion. Body and health and eating and food, and watch out, watch out, watch out. Very fear-oriented. And of course it would make for a lot of ambivalence about what it's going to be like to be balanced, and that I'm going to be very nervous when that happens. And that's just not the case. It is true that most of us will need to take a look at what we feel nervous about. Why do we feel we have to worry? Another great way to put it, a great question is, why do you have to worry about food and eating? And just see what your mind says is the answers. Just begin to write. Just let yourself write. Talk out loud if you need to. Tell a friend about it. Stay with it. Because sometimes these things have been a little tucked away and hidden in the background and speeding by so quickly, we don't actually feel consciously aware of what it is we're thinking in that fear-oriented mode. There is another part of you, all of us, that is very wise and able to relax and be peaceful and take a deep breath. That one is the one that loves answering the 4 questions in the work of Byron Katie. Is it true? How do you react? Can you absolutely know that it's true if you said yes? How do you react when you believe that thought? Who would you be without the thought? It gets to use its imagination. The mind gets to use the imagination to wonder, what it would be like if I didn't actually think that was true in the moment. If I didn't have that thought that I need to be very careful when it comes to food. And you can turn it around. I need to not be so careful. I need to relax. I need to be careful with my thinking. Very interesting to find the paradox of what can happen when you question and identify what it is that you're afraid of when it comes to not overeating or binge eating or worrying or obsessing about food. What is it that I'm afraid of if I gave that up? What's the worst that could happen? My favorite question. What's the worst that could happen? Seeing that and seeing it clearly can make you laugh and bring relaxation and joy and a sense of what it's like to eat for children. Like, do you remember when you were a child? Not everyone does, but I remember a time when I was 5, 6, 7 years old when I don't have any memory of specific foods and being terrified of them. In fact, I know I had wonderful home-cooked meals that I kind of remember vaguely that I just thought were fantastic. And then I went on with my life. Everything was imbalanced. Normal child's playful body. Trusting. Being myself. We can find this and tap into it again as adults. Being in balance. It's the natural way we are. Something is pulling us and actually wanting us to be this way. it's the most exciting way to be. The other way is actually very painful, and there's huge amount of suffering. The over caring, the attentive, intense, nervous, anxious caring that we've usually adopted and run with all the time when it comes to our bodies and food and eating. But you get to find out what you are thinking. It's unique for you. We'll be doing this in the group, in the Eating Peace experience. So I can't wait for some of you to join me in this. But even if you were never drawn to a group program of any kind, you can sit down and begin to identify what it is you're thinking. Do this exercise and see. And you may make some wonderful discoveries. All right. Let me know how it goes. Lots of love.